Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon to you. I know we're on the home stretch of what's been quite a busy day, so thank you so much for making the time to join me. My name is Robin Hill, and I have the immense pleasure of engaging with our retail and CPG customers across Asia Pacific. And today I'm going to cover off the future of customer engagement is frictionless and explore some stories, examples, and perhaps get you thinking about how you can enhance your customer experience. So the topics we're going to cover is what is frictionless customer experience. Then we're going to talk about the customer and business expectations of engagement, areas to focus on within your business, and where to from here. So first of all, this is a bit of an engagement piece here, so I need some active audience participation, please. Who in the last month has had a fantastic customer experience? Hands up. Fantastic. Doesn't have to be in your organization. Okay, one person. Is that all? Fantastic customer experience in the last month? One person? Okay. Who in the last month has had a horrific customer experience that you've probably told several people about? All right. Notably, a lot more of you in the room have raised your hands. And I guess that's what we get to solve and talk about today. Now, I'm sure you're very grateful that I don't have in the backing the sound that this picture conveys. And no doubt you have a residual memory of what that scratching on the chalkboard sounds like. This is what I want you to think about every time there's something that goes wrong with your customer experience. And that customer could be externally, in terms of your actual consumer or shopper, or could be a customer internally, in terms of a stakeholder where things haven't gone quite according to plan. And the one word I want you to take away from today is frictionless. Now, like any good presentation, we're going to start off with an official definition of what frictionless means. So it's an adjective, achieved with or involving little difficulty, effortless, an example, a frictionless payment solution. And I personally love that word effortless because I think that's exactly what it should be like to do business with our organizations, with our customers. It shouldn't be a hard chore. It shouldn't be that they have to be really patient or, really going the extra mile to do business with you. It needs to be effortless. So I want you to imagine this scenario, which is you're at home, you've procured your favorite yogurt, it's in the fridge, it's ready for tomorrow morning, and unbeknown to you, either your child, partner, or housemate has quietly helped themselves to your curated, delicious treat for the next morning. Now, more often than not, once this has happened, this is probably your face when you open that fridge door and realize it's vanished. Now, a customer of ours can't help but the rage that you may be feeling because your favorite treat has disappeared. But what they have thought about is how they can reduce the friction when it comes to you trying to figure out a plan to replenish that. And ultimately, something that's been added to your mental load of what you need to do in that day. And the customer that has kind of come up with quite a relatively simple solution is SOC or S Group, and they're based in Finland, they're a retailer. And what they did is they built into their app a barcode scanner so that if you have an empty product in your fridge, such as the curated yogurt that has been consumed, you can scan it and either have it delivered to your home or it's part of your shopping list. They've really thought about meeting their customer in terms of a very simple use case of when they've run out of product in their homes and how to make sure, more importantly, that they close the loop on having that transaction with them and not their competitor. So I'm going to explore 3 ways of how we can accelerate frictionless transformation. The first is around unified commerce, the next, customer service, and finally, some future-looking views of immersive experiences and how we can really break down that barrier in engaging our customers. So unified commerce, what is it? It's a term that's loosely thrown around, but fundamentally, it's the convergence of the physical and the digital world coming together with the technology backbones being unified. We know that over the last few years, a significant investment has happened in the digital space, often for many industries, just simply as a means to trade and keep meeting their customer needs. And so as they've invested in digital, often they're discovering that their physical interaction and engagement with customers is sometimes decades behind their digital investment strategies. And so when we bring those two worlds together, you start to get this unified commerce. And these use cases in the middle there in purple are an example of that. So for example, in personalization, we can think about how we have curated EDMs from a marketing perspective, that are focused on customers' needs, what you know about them, or focused on your website in terms of reordering search results. When we think about what that looks like in the physical world, it could be that when they scan into your environment in the physical world, that they get personalized offers that are related to that. Another way to bring this to life in terms of the unification of that and to really break the friction and ultimately meet that customer wherever they are. So we talk about being channel agnostic and session aware. So the customers starting their journey online, that you are with them and accompany them through the physical interaction in store or in the physical environment, or if they start exploring physically, that they actually have a stickiness in their customer journey to engage with you in the digital world. And to bring this to life, I thought I'd use an example. Now imagine you have decided it's time to go and buy a fantastic armchair, quite keen on grey, maybe a winged variety. And so you go to a physical retail store, voila, you find the fabulous chair you're looking for. But because you value your life, you don't want to make this purchase without perhaps consulting a partner at home or even just seeing how it will actually fit into your environment. And so in this example, a customer could take a photo of it through their personal device, which has a whole bunch of innate trust in, and then use VR to go and place that in their home environment, perhaps discuss it with their partner, or not, up to you. Live dangerously, I say, and then purchase that. But what's so great about this example is that it brings that whole experience of the customer being with you in a physical space and then transacting in a digital world without losing them across that journey and perhaps going to your competitors. So when we think about physical spaces, I'm going to use an example of digitizing a store. Now on the left-hand side there's a variety of different typical technology. So we've got mobile, which as I mentioned before, has got innate trust in. You trust your mobile device. Computer vision, robotics, voice, Internet of Things, and AR and VR. Now I want you again to use your imagination that we're now talking about an apparel business, and let's say it's a sports apparel business. Now, a couple of use cases of how the technology is orchestrated together to create a frictionless experience for the customer is what I'm going to spend the next few minutes exploring. So when they come into your store, let's say there's a typical app that they engage with this particular apparel customer, which has personalized and a few other instances in. When they hit that geofence of the store, it transforms and it equips them to have a much more meaningful experience, a more frictionless engagement, if you will. And I'm going to go through some specific ways shortly. But there's also a huge opportunity when it comes to our retail operations or operations more broadly in the physical space. It provides us an opportunity to equip our in-store team members to know more about the customers that are coming through their doors, and then to tailor the experience as they engage those customers, ultimately to lead to a better experience for those customers and hopefully a better commercial result as well. But there's also further opportunity to enable when it comes to the associate or team member in-store device. And that can be things like visibility of inventory, visibility of what's being picked up in store through click and collect, or even giving them notifications when folks are approaching that geofence so they are ready to provide curbside pickup as an example. Some of those other examples are smart displays. And so that is really where we think about how do we leverage the individual's or the customer's device to potentially trigger different media. And we see that the smart displays continues to be a really interesting way that customers are starting to find different revenue streams to A, respond to customers in store or in physical environments, but B, actually, if they are partnering with other suppliers, create a different revenue stream potentially as well. Now back to our example of this being an apparel store example. So let's imagine that that customer comes into store and they see all these cool things that they'd love to try on. Now, instead of awkwardly carrying around coat hangers with things that they'd like to procure and potentially try in the fitting rooms, imagine them using their device and the app to scan those different products, to select a time to go to the fitting room, and then voila, in 5 minutes, it is available for them to go and try on. And then they take what they like, and potentially there's even recommendations about products that they haven't discovered yet in store, that the sales associate, or through their mobility and understanding of the customer and their personalization, is able to provide recommendations. Other ways that we see friction being addressed through the digitization of stores includes inventory optimization. fundamentally, if someone is coming to a physical environment, they're there to solve a problem. They're there to solve in real time something. They're either there to purchase something and they want it there, or ultimately there's a service that they want. And so being able to forecast and anticipate what they want and making sure that you are delivering that customer commitment of them spending their time to come engage with you in store is critical. And probably one of the fundamental truths of how to reduce friction is to make sure that the service or the product is there when they expect it. From an assortment optimization, that's also around understanding our customers deeply in that environment and knowing what it is that they want and making sure we have the right offerings. Some other examples include personalization, which we've touched on, smart store device orchestration, and I'm going to talk through an example of that shortly, click and collect, and finally, frictionless checkout. And what does that mean in terms of having the faith and the trust in customers where it's appropriate for them to actually engage with your business in a physical context and then check out on the way. Now, many of these use cases require some foundational elements, including IT modernization and data analytics. But at the heart of many of these is AI and ML. And so if you're curious about exploring any of these type of examples and use cases, grab the QR code, but we're also going to have a QR code at the end so you can reference it there. Now, I mentioned that the in-store device orchestration was something I was going to discuss. And this, I think this is a AWS Panorama appliance. And what I love about this is that it enables you to take existing CCTV footage that you have and cameras you have in store that are IP enabled. It can then, at the edge, process the live image there that you see on the left and create it into stick figures on the right, which can then be curated and flow through your data stream and create a visualization so you can understand many use cases and enhance your understanding of customers in your physical environment. Some examples include macro space understanding of heat maps, inventory, but also just broader customer behavior that you can understand. So a powerful way to, in a privacy compliant way, understand more about how your physical space is operating. From a customer service perspective, I thought this was quite interesting that according to the Customer Service Institute of Australia, 4 in 10 Australians think customer service has worsened since COVID. 4 in 10. And so with that, I guess we're charged with really evolving that. And one of the areas that study cited, or one of the industries in particular, was telco, that they suggested was probably one of the areas that was struggling the most. But I wanted to highlight a telco example with a partner, so Local Measure and Amazon Connect, where they've really thought differently about their customer service experience and how to ultimately reduce that friction. For them, it started back in 2020. And so Vodafone New Zealand decided that they wanted to think differently about their customers. They wanted to make sure that customers could communicate with them on a channel of choice, that they wanted to ensure that customers could communicate at the best time of day with them that suited their lifestyle as opposed to when the organization was open. And finally, they wanted to stop customers wasting their own time. But it also created great opportunity for Vodafone themselves. So it meant that agents were able to actually take calls as opposed to just in the contact center, but create that mobility so they could take it either at home. And what I think is fantastic is that they then could leverage their customer service personnel in store to actually support customers that were phoning their contact center when SLAs weren't being met. And the results are quite stunning. So in terms of call transfers, it was down from 1 in 5 to 1 in 20, a 10% increase in total fix and contact resolution, and a 2-minute reduction in average handle time. So definitely an improvement to the customer service experience. Another way that we see friction being removed is through voice. And this is an example of where Amazon Fresh in-store has Alexa available. So I don't know about you, but sometimes trying to figure out what the inspiration for dinner that night can be quite profound when you're in store. And you can go up to Alexa, ask for some suggestions. She provides the recipe there. You can basically grab it off your app, so scan the Amazon app through a QR code that she produces. And that recipe is downloaded into the app and helps you wayfind around the store so you can find the ingredients by aisle, which I think is pretty useful when you're in a bit of a hurry, but still looking for some inspiration. Another example is curbside pickup. And this was Petco in the US and a partner of ours, JBS, who implemented this. And originally, one of the main challenges they were trying to solve for was deploying curbside pickup. And they did that really rapidly during COVID. But there's also some other great examples of how they're removing friction when it comes to engaging their customers. One thing I love as someone who's got 2 miniature schnauzers is that it gives their customers, through personalization, a reminder of when their pet needs to be dewormed, when there's grooming requirements, as well as a whole bunch of personalized offers depending on the type of pet they have. So really thinking about taking that friction, again, that mental load of their customers away, and prompting them to remember of those things which sometimes gets lost in the busyness of life. Now let's focus on immersive experiences. And often when I talk to customers about this, there's a little bit of concern that this is really far in the future, that this is sort of 5 years. And Gartner says that this, when we think about metaverse, in terms of it being mainstream, it's in that 5-year horizon. But given my experiences with my 10-year-old negotiating pocket money as Robux instead of cash, I think the minute that she and her peers are armed with ability to purchase, I think we'll see that adoption become really rapid. So when it comes to immersive experiences, and particularly over the, what's happened the last couple of years, consumers expect to try on, interact products virtually. And so often I get asked, well, how do we get ready for that? And so my hope is I'm going to share with you some ideas to think about, to build that muscle within your organization, to be able to meet customers where they are. And 64% of consumer brands and retailers are starting to invest in immersive experiences. The one place they're investing is on product visualization. On the left there we have Amazon.com, and that they were trying on new runners. And so using their own device, or folks' own devices to pop their shoes on virtually. How that feels in terms of fit, TBC, but at least they know what it looks like, so that's pretty good. But I also really like this other example from one of our partners called Hexa, where they take 2D flat images that organizations have and create a 3D model. And so that the image then has that 3D feel. And this isn't great just from customers having a better immersive experience when they engage your product on your website. It's also really interesting in that you start to think about how it can scale. Do you need to have a photo shoot? Could you use these images instead on models? So there's a whole bunch of environmental and cost-saving capability that comes from some of these kind of creative solutions of taking traditional 2D images to 3D. Another way is interacting, and I always talk about this being so Amazon Live or Amazon Interactive Video Service. It's really a reboot of the home shopping network, in my opinion. But there's some powerful differences here. One is that you can have a two-way conversation with customers, so your talent can feature, but they can also showcase your product while shoppers can purchase it, and then ask questions and build that brand. It also allows you to curate that data and understanding and build that into your data asset to know more about your customers so that you can then innovate on their behalf as well. So in summary, accelerating frictionless transformation, 3 key areas: unified commerce, customer service, and immersive experiences. So I wanted to touch on areas I suggest you think about focusing on within your business. And I've broken it into 2 bits. So consumer customers and business customers. So when it comes to consumer customer expectation, there's broadly 5. So unified brand experiences we just spoke about. So how are you thinking about your organization and the way that you engage customers and bringing the physical and digital worlds together and ultimately meeting the customer regardless of where they start in their journey with you? Customer service. As the name suggests, we're there to serve customers, and that could be internal or external. But how do you make it easy to pay, to get help, to return, and ultimately just easier to do business with than you are today? Availability. So considering what your supply chain looks like and anticipating needs to make sure that you're meeting customer promises, if that is having inventory in store or having service personnel that can solve those concerns either virtually or physically in store. Personalization. We have the immense privilege of having customers' data. So how do we use that to personalize to them? We know that organizations that do have a much better top-line revenue improvement. Loyalty. How do we keep inspiring and not just thinking about a discount? How do we think about loyalty overall to really bring that home and to change the relationship with our customers, for your brand to become more and more loved by them? So what does this mean when we think about frictionless in a B2B context? Invest in your B2B like you do your consumers. I think all of us over the last couple of years have really changed our perspective on our tolerance for poor business-to-business engagements. We're so used to being treated like consumers that when it comes to business engagement, businesses expect to be treated like consumers as well. And we also know that B2B buyers are shopping online more than ever before. In fact, millennials are accounting for 60% of all B2B buyers at the moment. And they're shifting to the self-service world. And the second point I want to leave you with is that 77% of B2B decision makers are open to making remote or self-service purchases over $50,000, and 35% would spend more than $500,000 in a self-service B2B capability. So I guess my question for you is, how are you ready for that? How are you ready to engage your B2B customers in addition to potentially your end consumers? So, where to from here when innovating on behalf of your customers to reduce friction? There was a study done by McKinsey towards the end of last year, and the statement was 3 new mandates for capturing a digital transformation's full value is the study. And what they did is they looked at commercial reports of a variety of businesses, all their financial reports, and they then bucketed them up into economic leaders versus laggers. And then from there, they did a bunch of research to understand what were the drivers that were changing businesses. And there were a couple of interesting observations. The first was 9 in 10 C-level and senior leaders say that organizations have pursued at least one large-scale digital transformation in the last 2 years. But the truth is that most organizations, when they've built that business case, are achieving less than 1/3 of the impact they expected from their recent digital investments. So that means business cases that have been built on revenue assumptions or cost reductions are achieving only 1/3 of the outcome there. And it led to 3 thoughtful recommendations, which I encourage you to think about today when you're thinking about digital transformation on behalf of your customers. The first was, digital transformation should be focused on the customer engagement and innovation rather than the cost efficiencies. So when you're building that business case, how do you think about that? The second was that internal talent should be used to develop proprietary assets that set you apart from your competition, such as AI, data, and software, and leave the undifferentiated heavy lifting of things which you currently are pointing your team to that actually they find a bit challenging. You know, or not necessarily challenging, but that you're wasting their time and energy on things that could be done much quicker by partnering with someone else. And the final recommendation that came out of the study was focus on attracting and developing tech-savvy executives so that you better can create a better overall integration of tech talent into the organization. So that means that executive leadership that's leading the tech side is able to communicate what the business needs. Because so often we see that there's really interesting, cool things happening in the tech space, but when it comes out of production, it's actually not going to change or matter to the business, how they do business. And ultimately, think about that from your customer service perspective. What are you pointing your talent and your team and your organization to? So those were kind of the 3 things which I thought were quite interesting, particularly the last one, because I feel like with the talent challenge we've had over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of energy and effort around data science and DevOps and product managers coming to organizations. But if you don't have the right exec leadership, it's almost, you know, a waste of effort. So to summarize, frictionless is what today is all about, and thinking about your customer service and experience in a variety of ways. So your time is now to help your builders become even better than they are today and to focus them towards the use cases that matter. So skillbuilder.aws is a great way to do that. And I thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. And my details are there, and as promised, there's the QR code. Thanks very much, everyone.